honor and a pleasure to welcome you here. Thank you all for being here. So if you can kindly take your seats for those of you who may be mingling around, inshallah. Don't be afraid to sit up front. We're going to open with dua. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Rahmanirrahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. Ameen. In Allah's name, the merciful benefactor, the merciful redeemer. We praise Allah. We thank Him for the opportunity to be here this weekend to share what we hope to be some inspirational, educational, motivational information that will, inshallah, enhance the quality of our life. On behalf of the Women's Conference, my wife, Sister Shirley, who is the chair, and the Dean Intensive, myself, Imam Mikhail Shabbat, we welcome you to Masjidullah for this very dynamic weekend. Inshallah, we're going to start with something that, according to the World Health Organization, tells us that depression is now the single leading cause of disability globally, outstripping cancer, outstripping heart disease. And at a time of greater complexity, unprecedented technological, political, and economic change, we are seeing how people's tendency is more and more to lock down into rigid responses to their emotions. And so this then puts us in a dilemma of dealing with our mental health. And we are very fortunate to have with us a beloved sister who has a master's in business administration as well as a master's of arts degree and is a licensed marriage family therapist. And inshallah, we know that the family also presents challenges for us to be able to deal with all the vicissitudes in life that happen within a family. And so without any further ado, it's my pleasure to present to you our beloved sister, Rabab Alma. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Please feel free to put your name and email on this list that I have here, and also if you can collect a pencil and a piece of index card, because we're going to have some activities. It will immediately follow with English translation. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, in the name of God, the most merciful, the most compassionate. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. We begin by praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that we bear witness that no one has the right to be worshipped and obeyed unconditionally except for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we ask Him to send out peace and blessings to our messenger Muhammad, peace be upon him, his family and his companions, and the people who follow him to the day of judgment. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us among them. Ameen. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Oh my Lord, open my chest, grant me self-confidence, contentment, and boldness, and ease my task for me that and make those loose the knot and the defect from my tongue, that they understand my speech. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you everyone for joining us today. We're going to talk about mental health wellness. And we're going to start with a general point about mental health, what mental health means. And we want to talk about first how mental health carries a lot of stigma in our community. in the community in general and the Muslim community in particular. I see that every time I encounter someone in the community, oh, you see crazy people. But no, it's not crazy. Actually, I myself, I have a therapist of my own. I think it's important to address mental health as we address everything else in our life. And I want to point out something, that when we talk about mental health, we want to think about it not as illness, as we are out of balance. Like, if we reframe that and we think of it as we are out of balance in certain areas of our life, anybody can go through that, something that out of balance, whether mentally, emotionally, physically. So we just need to work on that. And also, mental health is something like there is no spot or way for us to think that, okay, I'm gonna be in that state and I will be completely 100% perfect, sane. There's always something going on in our lives. And we cannot just think that we're gonna be in that state where everything is perfect. So, what is mental health? It refers to our emotional, behavioral thoughts and feelings, how we behave, how we do things, how we think and feel about situations in our lives. And sometimes we can refer to mental health as the absence of illness or mental health illness. I would like you now to think of yourself the last 6 months. If you would like to grab a paper and a pencil from here, it's for your own eyes. I'm not going to see it. No one's going to collect this from you. So think of yourself last 6 months. Did you go through something? Did you feel anxious or depressed about something? Persistently, constantly. It's not like just occasional. What did you do about it? Can you name it? Can you write it down? Do you remember what was it about? And what did you do about it? I will give you a minute to think about that. In the last 6 months, did you go through something? Did you feel depressed about an issue? Anxious? It can happen to anyone. It can happen to therapists also, specifically therapists. So when we want to talk about the stigma for the mental health, the first thing comes to mind for Muslims is if you have a mental health issue, then you don't have strong faith. This is what people think. Go and read Quran, go and pray, and you'll be fine. Although spirituality is extremely important, but it's not the only thing. Because psychology and therapy is a science. Allah and God gave us this knowledge to apply. So the fact that if we tell someone who's depressed, even the Prophet ﷺ, peace be upon him, when he says that our iman, our faith is never consistent and steady, it goes up and down. So how about if that hits you when you are on the lower end? What do? You just tell someone, go and pray and read Quran? So if you have a headache or you've been, God forbid, with a diagnosis, you're going to just read Quran, you're not going to go to a doctor? If I have an accident, I would not go to an ER, I would just say that I will just sit and read Quran and pray. I will pray, of course. I will pray. But would you seek medical attention? So it's the same thing. Another issue is people think mental health issue is weakness. Specifically, I see that with men. When I see male clients at my practice, it's like a sign of weakness. So the issue is in our community. We raise our men and our boys, telling them you need to man up and you need to be strong and don't show your emotions. And then when they get married, oh, are you expressing your emotions to her? Are you telling her how you feel about her? But he spent all his life not able to really expressing his feelings because he is not mad enough, and now you want him to suddenly be able to express his emotions and how he feels about his wife and his children, and he is not. How are we raising our boys, our sons? What are we telling them about mental health? Do we allow girls to express their feelings but not boys? I think both have feelings. Both have things happen in their lives and they need to express them. And we need to be comfortable having that conversation with our children at home. They learn that at home. So I think it's important to think about that in terms of if we really want to promote mental health wellness, we need to start with how we raise our children, how we express and share how we feel on a daily basis. So this ayah in the Quran, وَلَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ وَنَعْلَمُ مَا تُوَسْوِسُ بِهِ نَفْسُهُ وَنَحْنُ أَقْرَبُ إِلَيْهِ مِنْ حَبْلِ الْوَرِيدِ. The translation to that is, we have already created man and know what his soul whispers to him. And we are closer to him than the jugular vein. This is in Surah Qaf, chapter 50, ayah of verse 26. So, or 16. I don't have my glasses on. So, that's fine. Thank you. So, what does Allah say about, thank you. Appreciate it. What does that mean when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that we created man and we know what he whispers to himself? Our self-talk. What we say to ourselves, the negative talk, the imposter syndrome, that we every day tell people, I'm not good enough, to ourselves, I cannot do this, I cannot come in here to talk, I'm nervous, and this is not the first time I give a talk. What's that all about? What kind of a talk we continuously tell ourselves? What do we tell ourselves? I'm not good enough. And that reflects on how we carry our lives, our relationships. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says here that He knows our inner voice. He knows what's happening. He knows what we tell ourselves. He knows everything. Surah Qaf, which is the chapter 50, one of my favorite chapters. It talks about how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is close to us while we are alive and at the end of life. It's a very powerful chapter. It says, I can share with you, a couple of years back, I don't know if some of you were here, our friend, Sihan, she actually did give a talk here 2 years ago, and she passed away last May. We didn't know that she's gonna pass 2 years after, and that was a very painful experience. We were close. So I'm mentioning that because you were there seeing someone taking their last breath and you can't do anything about it. You just sit there. You can cry, but you can't really do anything. So in this chapter, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does say He's closer to this person than anyone sitting around. So if we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is closer to us, remember that story when the Prophet, peace be upon him, he was immigrated from Mecca to Medina with Abu Bakr, and he was in the cave with him, and this ayah says, "La tahzan inna Allaha ma'ana." Don't be sad, Allah is with us. This is what the Prophet told Abu Bakr. He didn't tell him, "How dare you get sad? Well, what's wrong with you? You know, I'm the Prophet, and with you, just man up." He didn't tell him that. He didn't tell him, "Don't ever be sad, that's not accepted." He told him, "Don't be sad, Allah is with us." So he addressed his feelings. When if you remember that story about Moses, his mother, when she put him in the, imagine putting your own son in the river, and
Little baby.
You know, just leave it there. Allah will take care. Imagine this. I mean, we cannot even bear it. Just imagine it. But then at the end of the ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, then we returned him back to her so she doesn't despair. He cared about how she feels. He didn't say, okay, she knows I promised her and I'm, Allah has, He keeps, of course, His promises and she should just submit. He didn't say that. He said, we returned him to her so she doesn't despair. So mental health is addressed in the Quran and in the Hadith. And everyone says that it's not addressed, it's not important, it's not part of our religion. They really need to review these hadith, this saying of the Prophet ﷺ and these ayahs, because it is there and it's repeatedly mentioned. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, we are closer to you than your jugular vein, He knows what's happening inside of you. He knows how you feel. That means He's addressing mental health. So we can extract these conclusions from the Quran and the Sunnah. We are blessed to have that we can actually respond to these people who actually discredit mental health, awareness or wellness or illness, whatever you want to call it, but it is there. And there are ways to maintain that. So we want to talk about the risk factors in terms of no one is immune, actually. I mean, I know someone, and of course I try to avoid talking about my clients, so I'm going to mainly talk about myself. So someone who's known as a strong but going through something and suddenly she's suicidal out of the blue. This can happen to anyone. My daughter was studying at the University of Pennsylvania, and there was this girl who completed a suicide. That girl had dinner plans that day. It was not planned. She didn't really say goodbyes. She was so overwhelmed, passing by the train, she jumped. So this can happen to anyone. No exception. No exception to ethnicity, socioeconomic, male or female, young or old. We're all have the potential. So we need to be aware and not to brush it and pretend that, no, it's not going to happen to me. It can happen to me and anyone else. What do you think of that? Think about it. Have you ever thought of, even thoughts about suicide can be an option? Maybe at least once in a lifetime, each one of us thought about it. Maybe not carry it, of course you were here. You did not carry it on with a plan, but if you are thinking about it, it's persistent thought. So you need to really give it an attention. So, in terms of statistics, 1 in every 5 Americans will experience mental health issue. So this is about like almost close to 20% of the population. That's a high percentage. And a lot of the disabilities that being granted in the US or in the developed world is about mainly driven by mental health issues. Think about most of these sick days that people take. This stomach bug thing, because if you say I have a cold, you need to come the next day coughing. But if you have stomach bug, no one is going to really track that. So I have stomach bug. But most of these are about mental health issues. You just don't want to show up for whatever reason. And we need to acknowledge that those are facts and these are events that happen in our life, and we need to acknowledge that it can happen to anyone. So, what are the common disorders? I see in my practice a lot of anxiety. And I want to stop with anxiety for a bit because we don't really sometimes think about it as serious. If you have persistent thoughts, you're anxious consistently, you really need to address it, because sometimes I see clients and then they're an issue and they don't want to address. And later on, and you can see, I mean, they're struggling, but they just don't want to deal with it at the moment. And then later on, they come with panic attacks. Because, you know, your body knows who you are. And if you don't address it, your body actually will force you to address it. No doubt about that. So in the beginning, you might have a headache, you might have muscle pain, whatever it is, but if you don't address it, then you might have panic attacks. And you will, some people go to the hospital, the ER, and they say, you have nothing, you know, stress. Isn't that wonderful when they say stress? So what am I going to do about it? And sometimes they do prescribe medications, and medications, of course, can help. But medication is just like a it's a band-aid. You don't really deal with the root of the problem. So if we don't deal with it, it's going to be persistent, and it's going to continue and exacerbate. Another one is the OCD, and this is when people have obsession about thought or compulsion about doing something. For instance, there are certain people have certain thoughts or images in their minds. They are consistent and persistent, and they cannot get them out of their minds. And also sometimes compulsion, when you want to keep washing your hands over and over, or sometimes, especially with Muslims, it happens with the prayers. Did I pray 3 rak'ahs or 4? Did I do or wash or not? I did it, but I am not sure if I did it good enough. So when this happens often, you want to see someone or kind of try to come up with some like a rhythm or something that if I will do it, maybe, I mean, there's a lot of ways to deal with it, but you will need to seek professional help if it starts to interfere with your lifestyle. PTSD. Well, people have PTSD because of traumatic events, people go to war. I've seen refugees, people were tortured. That's why therapists need to see therapists because you get trauma yourself by listening to all of these stories. But also there's something else that we need to pay attention to, that sometimes we do develop PTSD when we don't think it was a trauma. I myself remember something happened, and then I realized that wherever someone reached out behind my back, I jumped. So, and even my daughter was telling me, what's up with that? So there was something that I needed to address, something that I needed to, it's kind of like a PTSD. Sometimes we don't recognize that it is PTSD. Memories, avoiding certain places and certain people. So let's take a moment and think about that. Is there something in your life that you would like to avoid, to see or go to or talk about? Write it down in your piece of paper, please. Because this information is something that it's like a self-discovery. You need to know about yourself. Of course, depression, bipolar, yes.
Was that a question?
Oh, the question was, is there something in your life that you try to avoid or not to talk about, or a place that you don't like to visit? Because if you have that in your life, then there is something to think about. If you feel like after seeing someone or talking to someone, you're just distressed, feel pressure, you don't know where this is coming from. So this is an invitation for you to go deeper and see what's going on, because this is a trigger. So what are the causes of mental health disorders? Genetics, brain chemistry. So for instance, bipolar, a lot of doctors will prescribe lithium because there is an imbalance in the chemistry in the body, and people are invited to go to the doctor and they will prescribe medications. Not every mental health disorder requires medication, but some do. and that helps a lot. Some of the causes are also environmental. So if you're in a family where there's a lot of abuse, or if you are, sometimes when you're watching news,
Yeah, the news. Yeah.
oh my God, I stopped watching this news.
Yeah.
It's like every time you turn on the news, it's like something is, they never have good news, for God's sake. Never. They always have this happen and that happen. And so we really need to regulate that, by the way. So instead of watching or listening to the news in the morning, and the first thing you open your eyes and you kind of listen to news, or before you go to sleep, that's really traumatic. You take that to bed, or you take that with your day. It's like, if you want to know about the news, know it on your own time. So decide, maybe in the middle of the day, and maybe you have distraction afterwards, so you don't take it with you to sleep. So we need to be in control of what's happening around, what we actually absorb throughout the day. Sometimes if you took a new job, new boss, but this is all tension. You have to prove yourself to this new person. You move to another city, whatever it is. Last month, I moved my daughter to London. It was pretty stressful. She's doing her master's. So it's like, there are so many things that you think about the practical steps, but what about the emotional component? You have to deal with that, and after you finish with all this practical stuff, and you sit with your emotions, what do you do with it? So you need to find a way to channel that. And that applies to everything in life. Sometimes we just focus on the steps, on planning, but then what about how we feel? Because how we feel and what we think impacts the behavior and impacts how our day is going to go. So yeah, we talked about traumatic events, death. My friend passed away. That was a traumatic event, and I think it's important to realize that although you think, like I was of course sad when she passed, and I don't think I recovered. And it's not about putting a timeline to your recovery. I think we need to experience compassion and kindness with our own selves. So we ask people to be kind and compassionate to each other, but how about being compassionate towards your own self? So, okay, it happened last May, she passed last May, it's now October, 5 months later, we're fine. I'm really fine. Still sometimes people see me and call me by her name instead of mine, and that's very traumatic. So the early signs of trauma, or early signs of, not trauma, mental health issues. So I think it's important not only to recognize individually what's happening with us, also to recognize what's happening to others around. So to have this conscious, the collective conscious. Like we see someone who's always upbeat and someone who's always smiling, and suddenly they are withdrawn. Do we ask them, how are you feeling? Well, we all ask, how are you doing? But really, really, how are you doing? How are you feeling today? I mean, the way we ask matters. Because sometimes the question, this single question, can really affect someone's mood for the rest of the day. Sometimes we are in a bad mood and maybe someone says something and will change that. So the word, even as Muslims, we are advised that the good word, or it's a charity, when we smile. Sometimes you see the Muslim brother or sister in the street and you say Assalamu alaikum, no answer. That the answer, the smile, is a charity. Sometimes when we smile at someone, it will just will force us to smile back, and that will change the chemistry in our body. So I think this is a charity. It's not going to cost us anything, and that's the beauty of our religion, that the little things matter. So we need to Notice, if we have consistent low energy, consistently are not interested, consistently withdrawn. Of course, some people either experience more advanced symptoms like delusions, but if you have, for instance, if you're getting that nightmare consistently, you need to address it. Because these feelings are, it's an energy. Energy does not disappear. We have to transform it. It does not go away. So do you want to transform it to kind of keep it as negative, or do you want to transform it into a positive energy? That's something we need to decide. And once you take that decision, make that decision that I really want to work on it. I want to change this energy to be positive. I want to make a decision that things has to be different or new, or I have to change things. We need to decide that, but we need to notice first. We cannot change something without noticing first what's happening. So how we deal with mental health issues? Therapy, talk therapy, art therapy, all kind of therapy in terms of talk therapy, and then medication when you go to psychiatrists and prescribe some medications. Self-help, because we know our body, we know our best. Who knows the issues in your body better than you? It's you. And I will always add spirituality. Spirituality, the way we feel about a higher power, God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the fact that we know that there is someone is in control. We have to tie our camel and do our best. But at the end of the day, we know He's there. He will take care of it. Isn't that an amazing thing, that to know that someone is going to really take care of it? But we need to do our homework, you know. He does not like tawakkul, which is that reliance. Just I'm going to sit there and lay down, and the sky is going to rain gold and money. I wish that doesn't happen. That applies to mental health. So we need to take care of that. So what does it mean to be mentally healthy? We do understand that we will have fluctuation in mood. Sometimes we feel good, we feel bad, but it's consistently negative. We need to address it. But it's very normal for us to feel down a bit. We feel anxious about something. This is very normal. But when we are healthy, we're able to be flexible, we're able to bounce back, we're able to talk ourselves out of it, we are able to, seeking help is actually, that means you're healthy. You have this self-awareness that you are able to seek help when needed. So I want to ask you again, when was the last time you sought help for whatever you're going through? Take a moment and think about it. When was the last time you took an action to seek help? So when we are healthy, we have this desire to be happy, to have healthy relationship, to enjoy life with our loved ones. When we don't have that, then it's a sign that we need to address. Because if we don't address and improve something, it will get worse. Time does not heal things. Have you ever met an older lady who's bitter? Still bitter. Time did not solve that problem for that lady. Time does not heal things. We need to heal that. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So, self-confidence and self-esteem. You know yourself. You're self-aware. When you have physical symptoms, you have a headache or like muscle ache or back pain, you know there's something going on and you need to address it. And it's usually emotional. Most of our physical symptoms are originally stem from emotional stuff, baggage. So if we don't address the emotional baggage, our body will address that physically. A lot of chronic diseases that we have, of course it's environmental, there are a lot of factors, but one factor is also mental and emotional, our emotional state. And I think I hear a lot from Muslims that, oh, you know, we are tested, Allah will test us. But you know, and I will talk a little bit about the law of attraction here, just a little bit. What are we attracting when we say Allah will test and I'm okay, I'm open for a test? You know, in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَمَا ظَنُّكُمْ بِرَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. What are your expectations of your Lord? So if I'm expecting from my Lord happiness, health, prosperity, He will give it to me. If I'm expecting test, oh yeah, He will give me that to me. So what are you expecting? And that's how we align the law of attraction with our belief system. So if you are expecting health, prosperity, you want to work on that. How are you working on that? We need to be aware of our values. So you know what you want, what you really want. Then you will be able to actually assess every behavior or whatever happens in your life. Is that aligned with my values? If it's not, then I'm not going to go through with it. So it's kind of like I give you like a path to your decisions, what you want in your life. Like for instance, and I see some of my clients, so if you want to marry a Muslim, why would you date a Muslim? It's not I'm saying don't date a Muslim, it's not what I'm talking about, that's your choice. I'm saying if you have certain standards, if you want to do something, then why are we exposing ourselves to something opposite? We're just wasting time. If it's your value to date a non-Muslim, that's fine. That's aligning with your values. That's your freedom. No one is going to argue about that. But if this is your value, then stick with it. And then your decisions, your behaviors, whatever you do will be aligning with that. So knowing yourself, knowing what you want is extremely important to your mental health. Because if you're wasting your time on something that's not aligning with your values, then that will stress you out. Because your body will resist it. And also knowing yourself. So knowing yourself doesn't mean that I get stagnant, like I don't change anything. I know what stresses me out. I know what I can tolerate and what I cannot tolerate. And then I can work on that. So I am self-aware, I can pause, I can respond instead of being reactive. You know, there's a huge difference between the two. If I'm continuously reactive to things, so that my life can be out of control then. But when I am responding, that means I am being proactive and prepared. So which one do you want to be? So when we talk about mental health, that also includes spiritual and physical, because it's like a whole body. You have to take care of the whole body. So when you love yourself, and loving yourself is important. I know sometimes people come to my practice and say, what do you mean by loving yourself? You need to be good to our... So look, think of this hadith when the Prophet ﷺ said, you need to love for your brother what you love for yourself. That's a hadith that most of us know, correct? Okay. So how can I love and give to my brother if I don't what I love, if I don't really determine what I love for myself first? You know that concept of put your mask first on your face and then you put it on someone else. So I need to love myself enough to be able to love someone else. Remember that you are the person you're going to stay with yourself for the rest of. You have this companion. Look at the mirror. This is your best friend. You know, you're going to be with that person for the rest of your life. You want to like them. You better like them. Or it's going to be like a miserable life. So once I start liking myself, loving myself in terms of acknowledging what I want, what I don't want, I'm self-aware, I'm working on my improvement and my growth, then I'm able to extend that to others. So, question to you now. I want you to write down this answer for yourself. The first question is, one thing that makes you angry. What makes you angry? Number one. That you don't have to answer me, you can write it down for yourself. The second one is, what can I do to solve this problem? The problem that I'm angry about. The third question is, what is the one thing I want to change about my family or my relationship? Take a moment and think of about answers for these three questions. So, I think it's appropriate to talk about resilience and what does it mean in the scope of mental health. And being resilient is the ability to be strong enough to bounce back when something happens in your life. And if you're unable to do it on your own, it's okay to seek professional help. But the end result is you are able to bounce back. Whether on your own, or the support of someone, professional help, or wherever it requires of you to do to be mentally healthy. So, it does not mean that I never have negative thoughts. It does not mean that I don't really go through adversity. We're alive. We will face adversity every day. And that's fact. Whether with your life or loved ones, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always protect us from any adversity. But this is like the one of the components of life. But the person who is resilient, who is able to experience, open to new experiences, open to be flexible, to new ideas, is able to make changes in his or her life to make it better. Not rigid. So if you want to think about it from 0 to 1, from 0 to 10. When 0 is very rigid, and 10 is very flexible. Where do you see yourself on this spectrum? Like write it down, draw a line, and put 0 as very rigid, and 10, the most flexible ever. Where do you see yourself on that spectrum? And where would you like to be? So if you are 1 or 2, for instance, where would you like to be and when? Where and when? I think it's extremely important for us to put a goal and a timeline, because if we don't, then it's going to take a lifetime. Due dates is extremely important. So if you are scoring at 3 now and you want to be at 6, when do you want to do that? By what time? Like in 6 months? A year? A couple of years? 5 years? Once we have that in writing, then our energy will shift and will help you attain what you want at the time you want it. So think about that and write it down. So again, I can't emphasize enough that being healthy does not mean that you are happy all the time. It is how you respond to the events, how you think of what's happening. It's about your thoughts and feelings and your behaviors. Seeking help does not mean you are unhealthy. It means that you know what you need and you're going after it. So, how to improve your well-being? Again, you want to be aware of your own emotions, what's going on inside of you. And sometimes, we react in a certain way that's not expected. And we want to know why. It's important to know why I reacted in this way, or not that other way. What's going on in my life? What's going on in my mind? We want to think before we act. So, this 30 seconds when we were mad, 30 seconds, if we really pause those 30 seconds and think before we act, maybe we would stop disasters. Maybe we will not say something that we will regret later on. We want to come up with a system that when I am angry or when I am having certain emotions, what I'm going to do about it in a healthy way. Some people use mindfulness, meditation, breathing techniques. Maybe you want to ask your partner, I need a second. I need half an hour to recompose, and then I will come back and talk. Or maybe tomorrow I will talk with you. Whatever it takes for you to be in control of your emotions, and then address it later on. You want to connect with others who are healthy, good for you. So toxic people, you might want to distance yourself from toxic people. People who really are negative or consistently criticize you, or people who are negative. You want to find a way to set boundaries. You want to find a way also to keep people from dumping their problems on you. That's a big one, because it's easy to set boundaries with strangers. You can tell a stranger no, but the problem is, the challenge is telling no to someone you're close to. Are they going to get upset? Are they going to be mad? I don't want to get it. I don't want to have that. I don't want to deal with that. This is the trick. How can we stay connected, but with boundaries? This is a big thing with our loved ones. So write down, something happened in your life in the last week with someone you love and you could not say no. Can you write down that event? What did you do, and what would you love to do at that moment? Like, I really wish that I said no, or I really wish I did this, or I did not go, I did not buy that, or I did not visit that, whatever it is. Write down what you did, and write down your best ideal answer that you did not take or do. And how can you help yourself to be able to respond the way you love, that you're happy with yourself? Yes, I did it. I was able to say no. It's okay for people to get upset. No one dies because they got upset. That's fine. Why are we so, sometimes when you talk with clients at my practice, yeah, I cannot do that, they will be upset. Yeah, it's a concern. But what's your priority? Your mental health and your peace, or someone else's liking you? You choose. That's your choice. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, الذين آمنوا وتطمئن قلوبهم بذكر الله ألا بذكر الله تطمئن القلوب. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, for indeed, in the remembrance of Allah, do hearts find rest. The Prophet ﷺ says, used to say, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-hammi wal-hazan wa a'udhu bika min al-'ajzi wal-kasal wa a'udhu bika min al-jubni wal-bukhl wa a'udhu bika min ghalabati al-dayni wa qahri al-rijal. The Prophet ﷺ used to say, I seek refuge with you from worry and grief, from incapacity and laziness, from cowardice and misery, and from being heavily in debt, and from being overpowered by other men. So the Prophet, in this hadith, he used to say that, and he used to teach his companions to say that repeatedly. He used to address that. He didn't say that just go read Quran and pray and just get it done with. No, he had specific hadith for that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that if you remember me, I will remember you. So when we deal with mental health issues, we need to actually use different, you have to be parallel, like the spirituality and psychotherapy together. They are not separate. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for help, for guidance, for peace, for tranquility. At the same time, we seek professional help. And this is our stand as Muslims. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about spiritual approach, and in my practice I use that a lot. I do have non-Muslims, and I see non-Muslims in my practice, but most of my clients are Muslims. And I believe, and of course I will process with my clients first to say, do you want to incorporate spirituality in our conversation? And if they agree to that, then I will incorporate it. Because some people come to a Muslim therapist because they are culturally Muslim. So I need to really meet the client where they are at. If they are not really in that, they don't care about that, so I don't talk about spirituality. But if someone is interested, then yes, I will talk about it. And I think as Muslims, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taught us to have tawakkul. We cannot be in control of everything, or anything actually. I was driving the turnpike last week and just the tire blew up, and I didn't plan for that. I had an appointment and I was planning to be on time, and the whole plans for the rest of the day was thrown off because of that. I didn't plan for it. We take things for granted. But we are under the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He is the one who is protecting us, and we need to do our best, but we need to have tawakkul, which is surrendering to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, submitting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The second one is sabr, patience. And this is difficult. It's difficult to be patient, to wait. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that the sabirun, the people who are patient, they have really high grade in the Jannah, because He knows how difficult this is. For God's sake, I've been waiting for this for years. When is this going to come? When is this going to happen? So that can be a challenge. But we need to be patient first with ourselves. Are we patient with ourselves? Are we abusing ourselves every day? I mean, we talk about abuse all over the place, and not abuse. We don't talk about abusing ourselves. Shukr, gratitude. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran that وَلَئِن شَكَرْتُمْ لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ. If you are grateful to me, I will give you more. And in psychology, we talk a lot about gratitude, and this is really aligning with what our religion teaches. If we have this gratitude, if we have shukr, if we look at how blessed we are, if you focus on that, based on the law of attraction, you're going to attract more. If I'm going to focus on the negativity, I don't have this, I don't have that, I'm going to get more of that. Allah guarantees that. He said that. Because if you do shukr, I will give you more of that. And if you are not grateful, He said, my punishment is severe. This is the ayah in the Quran, I forgot the number. But yeah, so وَلَئِن شَكَرْتُمْ لَزِيدَنَّكُمْ. If you are grateful to me, I will give you more. The other one is dhikr, remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says if we remember Him, He will remember us in a better audience, at a better audience, before better audience. So imagine remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and He remembers you by name. That's amazing, just the thought of it. Ilm, knowledge. What we talk about psychology, you know, science, therapy, medication, all kind of therapy that we do. This is ilm, knowledge. So we need to benefit from it. Taqwa, the conscious of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, conscious of God, that we are aware that whatever we do, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching. So sometimes we do stuff and we don't want people to know, but you know Allah is watching, so why we made Him at the bottom of the list? So we care about what people think and we don't care about what Allah thinks of us. And that can be very humbling because it applies to all of us. Like we want to have this image in front of people, but we don't really care about our image in front of Him. So, what do you do? And we will have half an hour for questions at the end. So, what do we do when we see a loved one going through trouble? What do we do? We want to be there. First of all, we want to ask him to go to seek therapy. Because if you're not a therapist, even if you're a therapist, if you're a family member, you're not going to be their therapist. I can be the therapist of my daughter, but I can give her an ear. And if there's something she's going through, I will refer her to a therapist. Because when friends and families, they are emotionally invested. So they can be. My best friend tells me, if you are emotionally invested, you are not going to be objective. So I second that. Of course, I'm not always a good girl, but you know, we try. So we want to encourage people to seek therapy, our friends, our families. When they are going through something, they need to seek therapy. We want to be present. We want to be there for them without judgment. We want to be kind. Kindness. And we want to set boundaries. So someone tells me that their family member will always come to them and tell them all their stories over and over, and trauma. That can be really problematic for that person. She is not trained to hear all of that. So setting boundaries. I can be there for you, but I really cannot be there every day. Or maybe this story is too much for me. So we want to know ourselves enough to set boundaries and direct people or our families or friends to seek therapy when needed. Listen to how you feel. If it's too much, be honest and open about it. That's self-care. And that's mental health wellness. So I want to end with this question. So remember that first question when we talked about how would you approach an issue with your family or your relationship. After this discussion or this talk, would you change the approach? Would you choose another approach to solve that issue? Please take a moment to write it down, because if it's not in writing, you will not remember it. The one thing that you want to change about your relationship or your family, how would you go about resolving that issue? Thank you so much for listening, and the floor is open for questions. Yes.
You talk about
So you talked about not being around people who are negative, which makes sense. Can you distinguish, though, what's the difference between someone is negative and a situation where there is a problem that you are addressing? So the problem might be something negative, but you're actually doing something positive to resolve it. And do you find that people lump those two together? Is that clear?
Thank you for the question. So I think there are two different things. So when we talk about healthy people, do know how to deal with negative situations. So you have a negative situation, you address it, you deal with it, and then you move forward from it. You are objective about it. Maybe you consult with someone who's objective or outside of this circle. But being around the person who is negative, that you're consistently around them, you're seeing them every day, you are consistently communicating with them. So you might want to reduce or eliminate that. But when it's a negative situation, it will require response from you. So you want to respond to that. But then once you respond, then that's it, you let it go. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, and in addition, like, sometimes people, when they want to be positive, they lump all negative situations into being.
There's a concept that psychiatry looks at, and they say that sometimes people misunderstand the statement of I'm being positive, I'm not being negative. So they don't even want to address negative things. So they lump everything into this, quote, negative basket, and they don't want to even deal with negative things. So can you distinguish between what it means to be a person who is just being negative and a person who's addressing a situation that you are confronted with that happens to be negative? So give them a distinction between those two. Is that clear?
So I think when it comes to people lumping everything together, is there any mental health issue here when someone really want to... I see that with borderline personality traits. So when you want to win a situation, so instead of addressing the situation at hand, you kind of bring all the history. Instead of fighting fair, if you will. Like we have an issue at hand and we want to address, but then I feel that I'm going to lose that. So let me bring what you did 6 months ago. That's fighting, that's unfair fighting. So we see that in our lives. You try to bring the person to address the issue at hand, but they don't want to address it because then they will be at fault maybe. So let's bring other issues in. And at this moment, when something like this happens, I think maybe you don't want to engage because then it's not fair. And maybe sometimes you want to rise above this and deal with the person from a higher standard. So instead of addressing that issue that is not being addressed because they don't want to deal with it, because they are just all over the place, then you rise above that and deal with it at a higher level. Then they don't have a choice but to actually be objective or really maybe get rid of this negativity or give up talking about old stuff. But that's also, it's a mental health issue. You see it with narcissistics, with borderlines, people, they just want to be right all the time. And you cannot win with these people. So you want to sometimes just address what you want, rise above it, and really, really stick to your position. Because what they want is for you to give in. So you might want to stick to your position, rise above that, and then let it go. But these people will not apologize, maybe. Sometimes you will never hear that. Or they will not really address your feelings. It's their feelings always, not yours. And of course, this is very general. I mean, if we talk about specifics, it will make more sense. But I don't know if I addressed your You're welcome. Thank you. Any other question? Yes.
On the question when you said, what would you change about your family?
Yes.
I don't know if I want them to change as much as, when my family went, that's probably a lot of people in this room had the same thing. You're the go-to guy for everything. Call Dorcas, or whoever you are. And you actually almost kill yourself trying to appease everybody because you love them. I think I don't know how to say no because I don't want to hurt somebody's feelings. And my family, no, can she get a ride? Can you come over? Can you? I'm like, okay. And I get home and I'm so angry. And sometimes I am so angry with me, like, oh, that was too much. But I did anyway, because you love them. And it seems like when my family, they know I'm responsible. They are too. But it's like, if we ask her, she'll do it. But she won't say no. And so it's like constant. And I know it's like, I can't say no, that's my cousin. I can't say no, that's my auntie. I can't say no, that's, yeah. Could you come over? Could you? And I don't know how to. But then later on, I'm not angry with them. I'm not.
You're angry with yourself.
I am not angry with them.
You're angry with yourself.
Yeah, and I'm sitting there like hanging over,
You're exhausted, actually drained. So this happened to all of us. I think a matter of setting boundaries and taking your power back. So for instance, you have a schedule, don't you? You have a schedule during the day. So if someone calls you and wants to, unless it's an emergency, someone is dying or an emergency room or the police. No, I can't.
But I don't do that.
Yes,
I'm
that's
like,
why.
okay,
That's why you feel at the end of the day so drained and so exhausted. Because when we do that, we are not in control of our own schedule, and we kind of like we're giving our power away. And that means that talks a lot about self-help, self-care, and self-love. You need to put yourself first. So if someone calls,
I always feel like that's selfish of me.
So selfish is good, but you know what's not good? It's self-centeredness. Selfish is good. I want to take care of yourself. I have a schedule that I need to follow. I need to take care of my own stuff. I will put you on my schedule, but next week maybe. Sometimes you say no, not because of anything, because I just want to sit home on my couch, sip a cup of tea. I'm busy. By the way, I'm busy. Yeah, I can't do it because I'm busy. I'm busy taking care of me, and that's okay. I think we need to give ourselves the permission to put ourselves on the calendar. Wow. On our own calendar. Do you put yourself on your own calendar?
You got everything else?
Yeah. Everyone else is on the calendar. How about you? Are you on your own calendar? Yes.
I think sometimes what happens is, I know with my son, I think what happens sometimes is, I know my son will call me, because I've done what she's done, and he'll say, oh, Mom, what you doing? What time you going to do that? Where you going? But he doesn't, I've gotten to the point now where I say, please state what you need. Because if you ask them what they need rather than giving them your agenda, they take advantage of you. You can't say I'm not doing anything or I'm going to be home. The first thing comes out when they call me, what do you need?
So that's self-care, see? Yeah. So you know the game now, you know how to play the game. So we need to be in control of our own game. So they will call you and they will chew your ear with their stories. Okay, you have 10 minutes, my daughter, she's in London, you have 10 minutes. Really? Yeah, I have to go. She'll be upset, it's okay. I will talk to you tomorrow. I am also a human being. I need some time to rejuvenate. I need some time. I can't just keep hearing people in my ear, I just need quiet. So yes, what do you need? What do you have today? Don't worry about it. I don't want to bother you with that. Tell me what you want. That's what you're doing. Yeah. They want your agenda so they can fit their own stuff. Oh no, oh no. You tell me what you need, and I will pencil you in when I see it appropriate. How about that? Pencil you first. Any other question? Yes.
Trying to discipline myself with sweets. Food. Sweets. I try not to. One time I was like, I would not bring it in the house, but my husband loves sweets, but he doesn't have a problem with sweets like I do. Because I don't know how to just have a piece and just leave it.
So I know that I think it will be addressed with the diet and nutrition, but I think, and my best friend Shirley says that one time to me, that we as Muslims, we have that concept of fasting. Like, first, if you're fasting in Ramadan, and if you see the sweets you're fasting, you're not going to eat them if you want to fast. If you plan to fast and your intention is to fast Ramadan, even if you have sweets and cake and cupcake, you're not going to eat until like Maghrib time. So I think, and I love that idea from her when she said, using that concept to curb our cravings, not only just towards food, towards everything, even emotional cravings. So sometimes when we, and this does not work for me also when I cut it abruptly. Sometimes you want to just wind yourself into it. Like, for instance, I will eat just one piece, or maybe a couple of pieces. I will not eat after. Whatever rules you put yourself, so you not cut yourself completely off, but you make it gradual.
I don't know if I'm emotional eating sometimes, or just, going through the change in life eating.
So it's an emotional, that means it's deeper than food.
That's what I'm saying.
That means you need to do more digging. It's not about food. If you can't stop it, then there's something else. Yes? Any other question? Yes.
My question is, with my job, we have access to mental health, with our insurance and everything. But there are people who do not have access to these services. What is the what are mental health professionals doing in regards to people who don't have access to these programs?
That's an excellent question, actually. So ICNA, Islamic Circle of North America, they have established a clinic in the Northeast, Shams, and they have actually mental health services for free. I myself have some slots in my schedule that at a reduced rate for people who can't afford the full rate. My office is in Wayne, but I have another location in the northeast of Philadelphia at the Prince of Peace Lutheran Church, and I see people, and I have slots that for people who really cannot pay the full fee and to try to accommodate. I don't take insurance for many reasons. One of them is privacy. When you apply for insurance, when you have an accident and they ask you to waive all the privacy and they take all your records, if I receive that letter, I will send them all your records and it will be used against you. They say it will not, but for some reason you were declined. For some reason. It's that reason. So yeah, there are some ways for you to seek help. I mean, as I said, ICNA, Shams, they have free services. I think it's every Wednesday, I think. And sometimes when we have the intention, we really want to fix this, you will see things come around for you. It's like we're talking about the law of attraction. It will happen. We just need to have the intention, the plan, the thoughts, and the feeling around it. Picture yourself, how would you feel if this problem is resolved? If you resolve the problem, if you wake up in the morning and imagine that this problem is resolved, how would your life look like? and live that feeling, because then you will attract it. You will attract the solution. Does that answer your question? Yes.
So, what I would like to say is that a lot of things that you're saying, people may not think that they have an issue, but when you hear everything, it makes maybe things have, you understand them better, that you can get help. It's like the sister was saying about she has a problem in her eating sugar. So how are we addressing this in such a way that is open to everybody, instead of, people, well, that's not me, that doesn't apply to me. But when you come to these places and these formats, you can hear that you can get help. So how would we do that in a way to make the information more open to everyone?
The information about mental health. I think Masjidullah has done a great job every year with all of these forums that they hold and bring people to talk about different issues. Like this weekend is the whole weekend about like the mental, spiritual, and physical. Reading about it, accessing information online, being in tune with yourself. Like again, no one is immune. So when you feel that something is bothering you, instead of like when we find ourselves blaming the other, like I have a problem, it's because of this and this and this.
Yeah.
Really? So all of these people are at fault, but I'm always right. There's a disorder for that some people will never admit that they have a problem. We're talking about borderline, narcissistic, blah blah blah. But I'm talking about in general. Under any circumstances, you cannot be right 100% all the time. If someone really thinks that way, there's really a problem. So there are a lot of information.
Like Donald Trump? No,
That's another big.
The one who knows more than all the generals, but never been in the military? That guy?
So I think the idea is to start somewhere, and acknowledging that there's something is bothering me. Like I wake up in the morning and I feel something on my chest, like something is sitting on my chest. There must be a reason for that, and I need to address it. Because if I don't address it, then it's going to come the next day, and the following one it's going to be bigger and bigger. So I think start with the self, not with the other. It's always about the self. And once we address whatever happening inside of us, then it will be easier. The Prophet ﷺ, he said when they went back from the battle, he said we came back from the smaller jihad to the bigger one, the jihad, the struggle. Why? Because fighting yourself and doing the jihad it's difficult. It's hard work. It's like you want to change your patterns that you have been doing and following for decades. It's difficult. That's why it's the biggest jihad, it's the biggest struggle. But this is how we grow. And this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us to do. We need to work on ourselves. And if we are not tested, if we are not really looking within, then we are not going to improve and grow and change. Make sense? Any other question?
Can I ask you?
Sure.
You were talking about getting help, and I wanted to piggyback on sister's thing right here. I don't know how to ask this question, but in the masjids, people have a problem with drugs, Narcotics Anonymous, and people go to the outside places, and I'm just wondering why it can't be started in a masjid.
I do believe there are a couple of places in Philadelphia that they have AA meetings and for Muslim groups that do that, and I need to research it. But I do believe, I don't know if Masjidullah has that. No?
No, we used to have it. Where's Raheem? Raheem here? Brother Raheem, you here? Okay, guess he left.
Because I've been asked that a lot of times, like why, it's not in the masjid, because I know a lot of people go to, the outside places for help. But they said that it's always difficult. I don't know if people feel uncomfortable about exposing themselves or sharing.
This is a struggle because
Whereas though they'll go right into the other places and
yeah,
share openly. So I don't know if it's because you're in the masjid and because that kind of makes people feel uncomfortable.
it might be because see, when I was looking for a place to have a location in Philadelphia, I chose a church, not a mosque. Why? Because everyone knows everyone in the mosques. There's no privacy.
That's what
I cannot have Muslims come to see me and then another one will come and they know each other. This is a HIPAA violation. I can't. And when I know, and to the best of my ability I do that, for instance, I know when someone calls me and I ask them about the ethnicity, and I don't put people like right after each other if they're from the same community. And if they are, I put half an hour in between and I let them leave right away and I tell the other person do not come early. So I'm aware of that because we have a small community. People think, oh no, it's a clinic. No, I care because people care about that. And so it happened with me once that people were from totally different communities and they greeted each other and then I said, you know each other? They said yes. I said, okay, so from moving forward, I separated. I never saw them on the same day. Of course, sometimes it happens, it's out of your control, but I don't think it's a good idea. People will not come to the mosque and expose themselves in their communities. That can be a challenge. So we need to be mindful of that because confidentiality, HIPAA compliance, all of this stuff can play a role in that. So that might be the reason why people go outside. So this is something to think about. Any other question?
As we know, for many, many years, and even till now, mental health has been a stigma that's around, I would say, in general. And there's some issues around people maybe admitting that they may need to talk to a therapist. So my question is that the church that you have mentioned about the complementary assessments that you do there, is that open to males as well?
Yes. So it's not complimentary. There is fee. There is a fee, but it's not at the same rate as in my office. And there are certain slots. Yes, I do see male and females in my practice, not just for females. And actually, I have a really high number of male clients because, as we say, we don't really allow our men to express their feelings. And men usually don't like to express their feelings to other men. In general, I mean, not everyone, but in general, what I've seen in my practice and in my personal and professional life, men will talk to other men about sports, about politics, about gym, wherever, girlfriends if they have girlfriends, women, blah, blah, blah. But they will not talk about their emotional issues. They want another woman to talk to about this stuff. And I had a client and he said, well, I'm mentioning that because he allowed me to, so I have his permission. So he said that, so he had an issue with his family, and he said, I had two options. Either I go and talk to another woman, just any woman, and I will form emotional connection with her, or I will go to a professional, so we have the professional boundary, and he chose the latter. And he says that this was the best investment he made because it kept him within the professional boundaries. I think it's extremely important because I'm a therapist. I have male clients in my eyes. There's professional boundaries, religious boundaries. There are so many boundaries that we're both bound by. It's my license on the line. You know what I mean? So it's extremely important to keep that, and that's a very important, healthy way for people, specifically men and women, specifically men, they don't have that. We women talk to each other. We have the support group. We love that. You know, talking to your girlfriends, spend like a couple of hours on the phone, and really we can support each other in that manner, and that's really important. But for men, they don't have that. So yes, I have a very high number of male clientele in my practice.
Thank you for the clarification, sister.
You're very
Appreciate it.
welcome. Any other question?
Yes.
Yes.
So there are, I guess you might say, online resources that talk about certain mental health issues. What are your thoughts about them, and can you refer us to any that we may go to as a start for helping us deal with whatever mental issues we have?
So there is Psychology Today. They have very insightful resources. There are the Family Youth Institute. It's an Islamic. This is an Islamic website that they have resources for parenting and for resources for people to use. There are other resources that I can research for you, but this is what comes to mind now. Psychology Today. There are a lot of blogs online that people like therapists will write about their expertise. So you want to look based on what the issue you want to see. Very broad, as you know, very broad topic. So you can research on the particular topic, for instance, eating disorder or depression. And you might find resources on Psychology Today, on APA, they have a lot of resources. American Counseling Association, ACA. So there are a lot of websites online that can help you, and you can research on a particular topic to have more knowledge about this. I think, like Masjidullah here, mashallah, is doing this event. There are a lot of books on self-help books that you can also get to help you. You can always contact me if you need help on specific topic, and I will usually people contact me and I will send them resources or links on a specific issue that they are interested in.
And one follow-up question. We talked about a lot about people experiencing mental health issues, and could you give us some guidance on how we might be able to recognize issues that may be happening with those who we love, like our children or others within our family or friends? That are there any resources that we can use to become more aware of how to identify them, so that we can provide at least some counseling and then some recommendations on things that we need to do? Because as you know, there's an increased rate of suicide among children, and for a variety of different reasons, and in fact I think it's increasing in the United States.
Yes. So
By the way, we just had a little boy, I think he was a 5th grader, kill himself because of bullying, at school. It's only like 10 years old.
Yeah, there's another story of a boy. He's from the LGBT community, and he committed a suicide lately. So there is this. So I had a talk last week about technology, and we did touch on bullying. Bullying is a huge issue now, and there is a resource that you can go to. It's called Family and Youth Institute, FYI. This is a Muslim website that addresses parenting and bullying and digital devices and what's happening online. And I think what you said about what can we look for, I think we need to, first of all, assert our authorities as parents, because I see a lot of times, like I sometimes I have clients that they are 12 and 13 years old, they are actually managing their parents.
Yep.
The mother has to ask permission from the 12 and 13 years old to come to therapy or not. So the role is being reversed. We need to assert ourselves as parents, our authority. And we need to have parental control. We need to have consequences in place when things do not, because people sometimes, they have rules, they put consequences in place, but they never follow through because it's too much work, and those children are really firing back, and they are upset and throwing tantrums. We need to actually sit within our anxiety about this. Like, we need to show them that we are not afraid, we are calm and collected, we are ready to take that. When you're upset, so we need to really pay attention to what's happening within us first as parents, because parenting is about parents, not about the children. So if I am not grounded, if I am not calm, if I am not asserting myself as a parent, then the children have no parents. And we see that a lot, and I call it under like scream-free parenting. Like we are so emotionally reactive. We get mad, we get upset, we hit them, we scream, we yell, and then we're like crazy, jumping up and down like crazy, and they're looking at us like, what's up with that? I mean, if you're crazy, I can be crazy too. So if I am calm and collected, and you know what, you are not going to have your iPad for the rest of the night. I hate you, I don't like you, blah, okay? You can express your feelings, it's a free country. But give me your iPad. So I think it's about being assertive, and also being a role model, you know, for them. You cannot be on your phone all night and then tell them, oh, you can't be on your phone. What kind of a role model are you giving? So we need to give them that role model. We need to be an example for our parents. If I said something, I will follow through. Like, I mean it. My word is a promise. My daughter knows that. If I said something, I will follow through. Oh, she's upset. She can get upset. That's fine. She'll be fine the next day. We have this thing about, they're going to get upset. We're afraid of them being upset. Children need structure. They need routine. They need authority. This is what they need. They're going to fight it, but this is what they need. And if we don't give them an good example, if we don't role model things for them, they're going to do what? They're going to go wild. Bullying, yeah, like the Imam said, it's going to end up with, we're out of time almost. So, yes. Did I answer your question? No.
Yes.
We have 1 minute left.
So that would say when you have family counseling, each one be built separately and then come into a group?
Handling a family? It depends on, each case is different, so it depends also. So at the beginning I need to know the culture of the family. If the father has the ultimate authority, then I need to really adjust